dead in a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. We had brought you live videos. This is a live look at the press conference room where they're getting ready to let us know what's transpired over the course of this day. It has been a lot of new developments throughout the day. Just to backtrack things here and catch up from where we are, on Saturday, that gunman opened fire at Brown University, killing 2 students, injuring 9 others. Since then, it has been an all-out manhunt for this person, trying to find who this person is. And initially, we didn't have a lot of evidence to go off of. 2 people, we were told the first time within an hour there was a suspect in custody. That didn't pan out. Then we were told there was a person of interest whose name was leaked. That didn't pan out. And we've been looking at grainy footage of someone from far away, from behind, with a mask on for the last few days, and something happened today that broke out the case, and that's what we've been seeing. Police following leads and searching for this person, and it seems that they located him at that storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire.
And as you can see there, we're waiting for this news conference to begin several hours after it was supposed to start. It was supposed to start about 4 o'clock. This case has gotten much more complicated. It began at Brown University over the weekend with a shooting where 2 students were killed, several others were injured. Then a couple days later, they found an MIT professor, and he was shot and he was killed. Then tonight, the big story, the big break in the case, is they managed to trace this guy through a rental car that was found outside the storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. Now, initially, we saw police in tactical gear pointing their guns through a door into the storage facility. They weren't sure if this guy was dead or alive at that point, but they were pointing their guns. We got the pictures. These are live pictures from earlier tonight. So that's when they first got there. They weren't sure what was happening. They had surveillance video from inside, so they knew the guy was in there. They finally went inside, cleared the area, and found this man in one of those facilities storage units that was registered under his name. We don't know what that name is yet, but police know what it is. Now we're waiting for this news conference to begin, and then after that in Massachusetts they're going to be holding another news conference. So this is going to be going on for a couple of hours, and we're going to get a lot of answers then.
Yeah, we're hoping for answers. Obviously tonight, as you're hearing this news, a sense of relief for the Providence community, the Brown community, the Rhode Island community. It has been an uneasy week here in southern New England, but now it turns to why, and it's going to be a lot harder to get those questions answered. When we were speaking with experts earlier, a lot of them seem to think this was a lone wolf, someone who acted alone, who planned this out for quite a while. I'm guessing they'll be able to retrace his steps a bit, but it becomes more complicated figuring out the why when the suspect in this shooting was found dead again at that storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire.
Yes, this is going to be a very complicated case because it began at Brown, then it went to New Hampshire, all the way up to New Hampshire. But the big news right now is that it appears that the Brown University killer is dead. We don't know yet for sure whether it is self-inflicted or whether the police were involved, but we did see a big change in their demeanor there. They first went in and they were guns drawn, and then all of a sudden we saw everybody walking in and out of the building. So we knew that either he wasn't in there or he was still in there and he was dead. And it turns out the Brown University killer is dead.
And one of the things I think that we're also hoping to hear, because when we had learned that that MIT professor had been shot and killed in his home in Brookline earlier this week, during one of these press briefings, authorities told us that they did not believe they were connected. We've been hearing through our sources here at NBC 10 throughout the course of the day that there was a link that may have potentially broken open this case. And we have a lot of reporters at this press briefing. You can bet that they're going to have questions about that. What transpired overnight to suddenly link this case to the MIT shooting, and also that person who was spotted near the person of interest. Yesterday, Providence police released images of a person who they said was near the person of interest when it looked like they were casing Brown University campus. Did that person come forward? Did that person provide them with the evidence they needed to follow this lead and end up tracking this person down, as you said, potentially through a rental car to the storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire?
Yeah, if somebody came forward and gave them a name, then that blew everything wide open, because once you have a name, then you can get the cell phone. Once you get the cell phone, if they are carrying it, you can trace that. You can use triggerfish, or one of those high-tech things that the FBI uses, and you can begin to narrow down where they are. You can track that cell phone. It gives you a general idea of where it might be, that person might be. And then once you get closer to that area, it kind of narrows it down and gives you a very specific location. Or they could have just been looking for his name and found out, yeah, he rented a car somewhere. And then you find out where that car is. Or maybe somebody in the neighborhood said, hey, I think they were looking for a Nissan. And a Nissan was outside, and it was a rental car. It was a dark colored Nissan, and that's what they were looking for. So they have found this person. He is inside that storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. What an afternoon this has been.
And our NBC 10 crews are in Salem, New Hampshire as well. Maybe about 30 minutes ago, we were speaking with NBC 10's Leanna Falk. She is on the scene in Salem, New Hampshire, working to get more information. And she told us in the short time that she had been there, all of a sudden there was a flurry of police activity, and not lights and sirens, but a large presence. There were some larger trucks coming in. So you have to imagine that was part of the process of finding the suspect dead inside the storage facility. And now the investigation goes into what happened here. Why did he do it? We are seeing, we're keeping an eye too on Providence Police Headquarters, waiting for any signs. We've seen a few. I believe it's at the bottom right corner of your screen right there. Oh, you can see it as well too.
We're still waiting.
So keep tabs with us.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of made us suspicious about whether this man was actually dead in there is that we knew there was surveillance video of him in the building. And Leanna was telling us that it's a residential area, it's a commercial area. They have the road blocked off, but all the businesses around there were open. And all of a sudden, instead of these police officers running with their guns drawn and all their tactical gear, they're all walking in and out of the building, and they did not evacuate the neighborhood, and they did not evacuate those businesses. The businesses were still open.
Yeah, and you're seeing some of these live images now where you can see, once again, that large police presence at the storage facility, but not a lot of quick movements, obviously, because their suspect is down. And now begins the true investigation into why. Why did he drive to Providence, Rhode Island in a rental car? Why did he target that classroom at Barris and Hawley? Did he target that specific classroom? Was he looking for somewhere where there weren't cameras? How long was he planning this? Did he go up to MIT afterwards? Where was he planning to go next? Or these are all the questions that the media team will have tonight for authorities who are about to give this press conference.
Yes, and in the beginning, we thought, well, maybe it's somebody who was mad at Brown University, had a personal thing with them. That was the initial thought, that maybe that's what it was. But then once you brought in this professor at MIT who was murdered, then you start thinking, okay, there was a bigger plan here. And now if you're just joining us, we have just learned that the man who's suspected of doing the shooting at Brown University is dead. He was found in a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. And right now, they're going in and out of that building, collecting evidence. Leanna Falk was on with us just a little while ago, and she told us that all the businesses around there are open. There's not a sense of urgency there. She saw the officers up there taking things out of a van or an SUV. They had different kind of equipment that they were carrying inside the building. So they are gathering evidence right now to meticulously make sure they have their case.
Yeah, so here's our plan for you. We are going to bring you this press briefing at Providence Police Headquarters whenever it starts. We're told it's sometime within the next few minutes. We are also planning to bring you another media briefing that's happening at Boston at the U.S. Attorney's Office. NBC 10's John Perrick is en route to that. He's going to bring that to us live. And Leanna Falk, of course, in Salem, New Hampshire. She and her photographer, Scott Santos, are providing us with these images. She tells us she's about 500 feet from that storage facility where this very active investigation is currently underway.
And this is about an hour and a half from Providence up to Salem, New Hampshire. So if you want to follow the highway all the way up there, it's right off the highway if you're heading up to New Hampshire. It started in Providence, Rhode Island, and then on the way, something happened for the MIT professor at Brookline, and then all the way up to Salem, New Hampshire. We got a map here that will show you exactly what we're talking about. So it starts here in Providence, Rhode Island, where over the weekend, a man walked into a study session at Brown University and shot up the classroom, killing 2 students and injuring several others. A lot of activity there. Then, now it goes all the way up to Salem, New Hampshire, where we've been covering for the last few hours something going on at a storage facility up there. They had possibly traced this guy's rental car down to this facility in the storage unit, went into that storage unit, and once they got in there, they found a facility that was registered under his name. They have not yet told us that person's name, but he is a suspect in the Brown University shooting and the MIT professor shooting as well.
And we have to imagine his name will be coming out in this press conference set to take place shortly. As we take a closer look at the heavy police presence still in Salem, New Hampshire, Leanna had been speaking with residents in the area who were in shock, understandably so. You know, earlier today we'd been hearing tips about certain neighborhoods where they were seeing police presence too. And when something like this comes to your community, I mean, we don't have to tell that to you, especially the people on the east side of Providence. It shakes you to your core to find out that the person who committed such a heinous crime just a few short days ago, both in Providence, Rhode Island, and potentially in Brookline, Massachusetts, then went to this sleepy New Hampshire community right kind of on the border of Massachusetts and was in a storage facility for we're not sure how long. That's again what we want to know. Did he flee right after the MIT shooting? And has he been hanging out in this storage facility? A lot of questions that I'm sure the video evidence will reveal in the coming days.
Yes. Now, the police got a lot of criticism about how fast this was being solved. Now you can see that there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we didn't know about. But the bottom line here is that the gunman is dead in the Brown University shooting, and they believe he is also associated with the death of the MIT professor. As you can see there, the roads are closed off in Salem, New Hampshire. They just don't want people going down there, but the man is dead. So the danger is apparently over at this point.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, it was pretty telling when Leanna, when you asked her about the number of businesses and you asked, are they open? And she said, yeah. They're all still open. So the threat obviously had disappeared at that point. So this is video of the storage unit as officers were going in. This is not live video, but this is when they were going in a bit earlier. And you can see they're a bit more methodical in their approach going in, kind of all working together.
You can tell that they have practiced this many times.
Yes, absolutely. And that's when we kind of initially started, when we had first come on the air around 7, we started seeing images of this, and it looked much more active, and it has since calmed down, and obviously we now know that's because the shooter was found dead inside.
And there's that Nissan, maybe, that we were talking about. That may be the vehicle that the gunman was using. Here you see them going in. Now, earlier they were all standing outside. This is when I think they finally realized that he was deceased. Let's go live now to Providence Police Headquarters, where we'll get the latest on what's going on and what they can tell us about the death of the gunman in the Brown University shooting. You can open up, well. Okay, again, major developments in the Brown University killer. We're going to be going to this live news conference in just a moment. This is all centered around a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire, where a car believed to be operated by the suspect was found. Here's Mayor Brett Smiley.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, our Providence neighbors can finally breathe a little easier. In a minute, Colonel Perez will share the latest details on the investigation, but I want to thank the people of Providence for stepping up and coming together during an extraordinarily difficult time. I know this has been hard on all of us. Over the past 5 days, minutes have felt like hours, but the people of Providence have done what we're best at. We've leaned on one another, come together, and supported one another, and showed the nation what a tight-knit community looks like. It was because of the information provided to us by neighbors and the tireless work of our Providence Police Department, the Rhode Island State Police, the FBI, the ATF, and many other federal partners the incredible prosecutorial advice and guidance that we received from the Attorney General's office, we all worked well together to be able to identify this suspect. I know we will have a lot of questions still, and we will continue to work to get those answers. But it is a great honor for me to turn this over to our Chief of Police, Colonel Oscar Perez, and I will say on behalf of the people of Providence, we owe him and every member of the Providence Police Department the deepest debt of gratitude. Colonel?
Thank you very much, Mayor. Well, first and foremost, I want to offer my deepest condolences to the families, the victims. It was for them that this work was put together to make sure that they get the justice that they deserve and to ensure that this person was held accountable. Second thing I'll tell you is that I'm extremely proud of this department, actually the officers, the detectives, the real-time crime center, the community response team, the intelligence division, the narcotics division, the task force. This past Saturday, as you all know, December 13, Providence Police Department and Brown University Police Department responded to this horrific tragedy at Brown University 184 Hope. Our officers were there within minutes. That same day, Providence police detectives immediately went to work. Looking for video footage to see who this individual was and who was responsible. A person of interest was identified from that video footage. The person of interest was observed on Hope Street, turning onto Waterman Street, and that was one of the first videos that we released. At the same time, every federal agency you can think of was reaching out to the Providence Police Department and responded to the capital city. Images were shared with media within hours. Persons of interest it was the same individual that has been the focus of this investigation since the beginning. All the new images that we received of this person of interest were shared with the media continuously over the past 6 days. This critical evidence was collected with the use of public assistance. As the mayor stated, I'm proud to be the chief of police of this city. I'm proud to be a product of this city for the reasons that the mayor stated. The community stepped up. It was all about groundwork, public assistance, interviews of individuals, and good old-fashioned policing. That is the type of police work that every police officer in this nation reminds themselves of, and that many do not understand. And that is critically important and often succeeds where technology alone cannot. We looked at financial records, we looked at video footages, and in the specific incident, it was actually a video that provided us with a description of a vehicle. That was corroborated through a tip that was received to the tip center. That room was packed with detectives, agents, receiving calls on a daily basis. We started early and left late. Then Flock and the LPR was able to provide us with this description of this vehicle. That vehicle was picked up by Flock, which led us to a car rental place in Massachusetts. Through that, the agents and their work as well were able to get us footage of this individual, as well as a copy of the agreement which provided his real name. The video of that subject matched the description of that person of interest that this police department was desperate to put handcuffs on. That individual was identified as Claudio Neves Valenti, date of birth, and he was a 48-year-old man. He was a Brown student, he was a Portuguese national, and his last known address was in Miami, Florida. And I will tell you that he took his own life tonight. We have members of the Providence Police Department up in Salem, New Hampshire, and we also have the BCI unit. Obviously, the FBI and their evidence recovery unit is up there, so the process is being conducted as we speak. And it goes without saying that I would like to personally thank the efforts again of the Providence Police Department, the Rhode Island State Police, the Rhode Island Attorney General, the FBI, the ATF, HSI, the U.S. Marshals, IRS, DEA, Secret Service, and NCIS. There is no way that we could have done this by ourselves. In this nation, when horrific incidents like this happen, law enforcement steps up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel. General Arona?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. You know, I would describe the emotions on the investigative team, including our prosecutors and the agents, detectives from both state police, Providence, as mixed. You know, there is a sense of completeness in terms of the investigation, an investigation that's, if not the hardest, among the handful of hardest investigations that I've ever been involved with. And the sense that we owed those 2 dead Brown students and the 9 injured Brown students and the students who were in that auditorium that weren't injured, and the Brown community and the Providence community results. The teams worked really hard. I think I mentioned that to you almost every night that we met with you. I wish they were all up here with us. That we wouldn't fit here, but it was remarkable to see the cooperation between the FBI agents, the ATF agents, the HSI agents, the Providence police detectives, the state police detectives, our prosecutors. And I will say that everybody brought a certain expertise to the table, but it is nevertheless a sad moment when you think about those young people who were hurt, injured, or worse. 2 of them are now deceased. You know, to me, this was always going to be an investigation where something was going to break it open. We were going to pull threads. We were going to gather evidence that would lead us in a particular direction. And I will say that if we were with you less than, well, I guess now more than 24 hours ago, we had that picture of that second individual. And I would say within an hour, no more than 2, I think it was under an hour, that person came forward to 2 Providence police officers over on the east side and said he had information, that he was that person and he had information that could help this case. And I remember last night watching his interview, and he blew this case right open. He blew it open. And that's how these cases sometimes go. You can feel like you're not making a lot of progress. You can feel like you're chasing leads and they don't work out. But the team keeps going because, you know, those of us with experience know that you're going to pull a lot of threads, and it's not always the first one that's going to get you where you need to go. But when you do crack it, you crack it. And that person led us to the car, which led us to the name, which led us to the photographs of that individual renting the car, which matched the clothing of our shooter here in Providence, that matched the satchel that we see here in Providence. He was found dead with a satchel, with 2 firearms, and evidence in the car that that matches exactly what we see at the scene here in Providence. And so I know that you and the public have questions about how we got from a place yesterday where all we could share with you was a photograph of someone we wanted to talk to where we got to tonight. And so we got a state arrest warrant for murder today that was signed by a district court judge for this individual. There won't be a prosecution now, of course. But that affidavit is on our website, and you will be able to see more and read more about how this investigation unfolded. I won't get you all the way there because there are some things that happened afterwards which led us to this suspect's body in New Hampshire. But it will, I think, tell you, give you a sense of the work that went into this by the line prosecutors and the line agents and detectives from the agencies that work so well together. So, you know, as I said, it's with mixed emotions. It is unimaginable, the pain that the parents and families of the deceased are feeling tonight and will feel undoubtedly for quite a while. But I hope that by bringing this person to justice, that we can at least give them the beginnings of some measure of closure. And I want to thank you all for your patience with me when I got a little testy with some of you. Those of you who know me from Rhode Island, you know that's my nature. So I really want to thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, General. As has been said several times, the partnership with the FBI was invaluable. And so it's a pleasure to introduce Special Agent in charge of FBI, Ted Dox.
Thank you, Mayor. And good evening. My name is Ted Dox, Special Agent in charge of FBI Boston. We got him. Shortly before 9 o'clock tonight, the FBI SWAT team executed court-authorized search warrants at a storage unit facility in Hampshire Road in Salem, New Hampshire. This is where we located Claudio Neves Valente, the individual who we believe was responsible for the Brown shooting. The latest developments in an intense 5-day manhunt, and as a result of an incredible amount of work dedicated by the law enforcement team standing here before you tonight. Every single agency brought their unique skills and expertise to this investigation, and we're motivated by the victims and survivors of this horrific incident. Even though the suspect was found dead tonight, our work is not done. There are many questions that need to be answered. There's a lot of evidence that needs to be processed, and most importantly, the victims and their families deserve special care and consideration. The FBI and our partners across Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire will continue to search for answers for the victims, survivors, and their families, to see what motivated this individual to carry out such a senseless act of violence. From the onset of this critical incident, it's been all hands on deck. The FBI deployed approximately 500 special agents, analysts, task force officers, and support personnel to assist our partners in this investigation. In addition to this extra manpower, all our specialty teams were activated, including Evidence Response Team, SWAT, Divert, and Victim Services Response Team, just to name a few. A special thanks to you, the media, as well as to the community. My sincere thanks to Colonel Perez, Colonel Weaver, AG Nerona, Brown University PD, and all of our partners. This was truly a team effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Another critical partner at every step along the way was the ATF. I'd like to introduce Special Agent in charge of the ATF, Tom Greco.
Good evening. My name is Tom Greco, the Special Agent in charge of ATF Boston. From the moment 911 reports of the shooting at Brown University came through, there's been an around-the-clock effort to identify the perpetrator and to protect the community. The men and women of ATF, including our special agents, our intelligence research specialists, and our support personnel, have been proud to support and be part of that effort, leveraging our unique experience, dedicated investigators, canine handlers, and crime gun intelligence technology such as NIBIN, the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network, to compare ballistic evidence, and our other available tools to support the investigation, and to help identify Claudio Neves Valente as the individual that we believe was responsible. ATF's mission, first and foremost, is to protect communities from violent crime. Each individual in this country deserves to live in peace and security in their homes, in their schools, in their places of worship, and in the streets. The actions of Claudio Neves Valente stole that right and terrorized the community. I'd like to emphasize to the public, this was a highly dangerous individual capable of extreme violence. And we are happy to have been part of this investigation and proud to have worked with our partners to identify him and see this through. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. From the very outset on Saturday, from our first press conference in the fire station to today, Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee has been by Providence's side every step of the way. The City of Providence is incredibly grateful for the governor's support, the state police, not just their assistance with the investigation, but in supporting the broader community. It's a pleasure to introduce Governor Dan McKee.
Thanks, Mayor, and clearly your staff, I feel the same way with the team that you have, that we were happily able to assist. And as a former mayor, many of here in the audience know that I've been a mayor, some don't, but I empathize and sympathize with the position that you were in and the fact that you needed people to follow the lead of the Providence police and to partner in with some extraordinary people, whether it's with the FBI or the ATF, and of course our state police as well. From the very beginning, my thoughts as a dad was with the families who suffered from the shooting. The unthinkable happened in our state. The unthinkable happened in Providence. The unthinkable happened at Brown University. And we're going to be forever changed. But our commitment from the state level is to continue to support Providence, Brown, and the people of the state of Rhode Island in the recovery. That's going to take a great deal of time. But I do say this. The professionalism that I saw in the law enforcement should make everyone that lives in our state and beyond our borders feel very safe. These things happen, but it requires some professional help in law enforcement to bring it to the conclusion that we've been able to bring it to. So, Colonel, thank you, everybody involved. And again, we will stand with Providence and Brown University and the people of the state of Rhode Island to provide the help that will be needed in the recovery in a trauma like this.
Thank you, Governor. Throughout the year, the Rhode Island State Police is an incredible partner to Providence, but during this investigation, their support was invaluable. I introduce Colonel of the State Police, Colonel Weaver.
My name is Colonel Darnell Weaver, the Superintendent of the Rhode Island State Police. I want to begin by recognizing the excellent and exceptional efforts of the Providence Police Department and Colonel Oscar Perez. From the very first moments of this investigation, the Providence Police Department has worked collaboratively and relentlessly, day and night, on this investigation while protecting our capital city. Their detectives followed facts, developed evidence, and pursued every credible lead. Colonel Perez's leadership has been steady and decisive, focused on identifying the person responsible for this tragedy. As always, our troopers stepped up, working shoulder to shoulder with the Providence Police and our local, state, and federal partners. I want to give particular recognition to our detectives, whose diligence and dedication contributed to this investigation. Our detectives and division leadership operated as a unified team, sharing intelligence, resources, and expertise. This has truly been an all-hands-on-deck investigation, as virtually every trooper has taken extra shifts to help support the efforts in Providence, and I have never been prouder to be a member of the Rhode Island State Police. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the Rhode Island State Police, and this case stands out among one of the most challenging in our state's history. The sheer volume of digital evidence, the complexity of the investigation, and the intense public interest played an extraordinary demands on everyone involved. Despite that pressure investigators remain disciplined, methodical, and focused on facts. We are grateful for the assistance of the public, particularly those who shared our information, provided tips, and gave us doorbell camera footage and access to their property. We are also thankful for the ongoing support of Rhode Islanders. We know that you have been with us through this entire investigation. I also want to be very clear about something else. Criminal investigations are grounded in evidence, not speculation or online commentary. The endless barrage of misinformation, disinformation, rumors, leaks, and clickbait were not helpful in this investigation. Distractions and unfounded criticisms do not support this work. They complicate it and threaten to undermine the justice we seek for the victims and the grieving families. Despite these challenges, good police work prevailed, and we have lessons that we can bring forward from these long days ahead. To the Brown University community and the people of Rhode Island, be assured that this case reflects the law enforcement community and what we are capable of, and that we are committed to this state. We will continue to support the victims and the broader community as the healing continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Providence is so proud to be home to Brown University, and we are committed to working together with them in the future as they help heal their community as we do our broader Providence community. We continue to give condolences to the deceased and our prayers to those who are recovering. The leader of Brown has been a great partner through this whole process. I'd like to introduce President Christina Paxson from Brown University.
Thank you. Nothing can really fully bring closure to the lives that have been shattered over the past week, but this may allow our community to move forward and begin a path of repair and recovery and healing. I want to thank the dedicated law enforcement agencies that have worked so tirelessly on this case, really around the clock, as well as our neighbors and others who participated in giving tips and helping with the investigation. We hope that this outcome tonight brings an increased sense of safety for our community at Brown and in the surrounding area. This has been a period of great fear and anxiety for many people, and now perhaps some form of relief. Truly, this week has been devastating for our community in a number of ways, including the experiences that members of our community have had with being targeted by online rumors and accusations. And I hope that this development also means an end to this truly troubling activity. So we remain focused on the safety and security of our community and in support for the victims of this senseless violence. Now, we know the public and our own Brown community members will want to know more about the individual now identified by law enforcement as the suspect in last weekend's shooting. And we can confirm the following to the best of our knowledge, based on our review in the very short time since law enforcement authorities made us aware of this development. And we provided this information to law enforcement as they build their case and wrap up the investigation. So Claudia Manuel Neves Valente was enrolled at Brown from the fall of 2000 to the spring of 2001. He was admitted to Brown's graduate school to study in the Master's of Science PhD program in physics, beginning on September 1st, 2000. And he took a leave of absence effective April 2001 before formally withdrawing effective July 31st, 2003. During his time at Brown, Nueves Valente was enrolled only in physics classes. The majority of physics classes at Brown have always been held within the Barris and Hawley classrooms and labs. Now, detailed records indicating where specific courses were held don't extend back to 2001. But we can say that physics classes typically require access to specialized equipment, including demonstration carts that are a fixed asset in some of Barris and Hawley classrooms. So I think it's safe to assume that this man, when he was a student, spent a great deal of time in that building for classes and other activities as a PhD student in physics. He has no current active affiliation with the university or campus presence. So again, we thank law enforcement and so many others for their extensive work on this case, day and night, and we look forward to a sense of restored safety for Brown, Providence, and the Rhode Island communities. Thank you.
Thank you, President Paxson. The last speaker, and then we will take your questions, is the Chief of the Brown Police Department, Chief Chapman. Remember, his officers were the first to respond on Saturday, and we are so grateful for both their immediate and heroic response and their partnership over the last 5 days. Chief?
I want to express my ongoing prayers and cared concern for our entire community. I certainly also want to acknowledge and thank the men and women of the Brown University Police and Public Safety for their efforts. As you see, this was a Herculean task and required a lot of collaboration and work. And our officers and our public safety personnel were shoulder to shoulder with these assets. I do want to also thank all of you who have helped citizens and law enforcement. That partnership and collaboration means the world to us, and we couldn't have gotten there without you. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We'll now open up to questions. Go ahead. Go ahead.
What led authorities to link the incidents between Brown University and MIT?
Yep, I can do that.
And then I can follow up to that.
Yeah, I'll start. I'll just tell you that a lot of the information and evidence that we ended up gathering linked us to a connection up in Massachusetts, but obviously at the MIT. But I feel a respect to the authorities in Mass as well as the FBI that's for them to comment. But I'll tell you that the groundwork that started in the city of Providence by our detectives, the detective division under the command of Major LaPayan, as well as the federal partners that we had in our room upstairs, and ATF, the FBI, led us to that connection. And so that was great work.
Does FBI want to weigh in on that? And then I have a follow-up.
I think through that particular link that you're talking about, that case is being worked out of Massachusetts with the leadership of U.S. Attorney Leah Foley. I believe that they're having a press conference today as well, where they'll reveal more to the general public at that time. I'd be remiss to start and kind of talk on this, to let them kind of had first dibs to kind of be the ones to tell the public about those particular links.
And your follow-up.
But your follow-up, sir.
As for the second person who came forward, what did that person tell you, and did that person know the shooter?
So yeah, obviously I had mentioned at the last press conference that it was a person that we wanted to speak with. The work of the video collections that we had led us to identify that there was a person that actually encountered this individual. So it corroborated everything that we saw. We saw our person of interest. We saw that there was a vehicle involved. When this person came in, broke the case in the sense that explained to us exactly what we thought we had seen and put that individual at the crime scene. Obviously, that was the break, because we knew that we were in the right direction to ensure that we were going after this individual, but obviously took his life.
Colonel.
Go ahead. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Did Mr. Valenti act alone, and is there an anti-Semitism component behind it, do you expect?
As far as we know, Steve, he acted alone.
And is there an anti-Semitism component to this?
No, that we know of, no.
John.
Colonel, what was the events that led to the storage facility? So was he pursued there? Did he know authorities were going after him? When was he last alive? Like, how did that play out?
So it plays out in the sense that we obviously, I just stated, we collected all the evidence. We were able to learn that there was a rental vehicle. We learned about that vehicle. There was financial records that were verified by the FBI, obviously, and other agencies. I'm sorry, actually, so another agency, so multiple agencies that verified financial records that brought us to that site to know that he had actually rented a site at the storage unit, and then we ended up in Salem.
In a follow-up,
Yeah.
when he did that, did he know authorities were coming, or did he just go and, like, how long had he been in that storage unit?
That we're not aware of, John, in the sense that all we knew is that we were on a manhunt, and that's what he led us to. So.
Amanda?
Oh, thanks. Chief, I have some questions for you about Claudio. So he graduated, he did graduate, he was at Brown more than 20 years ago. His last known address was in Miami, but now he's here at Brown University, potentially also at MIT. What do you know about what brought him up here?
There's going to be unknown answers that we have no answer as far as that. Obviously, came up here and committed this horrific incident and this tragedy, and that's all we knew. Our mission was to ensure that we could find him and bring him to justice, but yeah,
No motive at this point?
At this point, correct.
And my follow-up is, of the evidence that you've collected, have you collected the handgun that you believe was used in the shooting? Have you collected any type of manifesto or evidence? Have you planned more shootings?
So as far as I know, that's the FBI evidence recovery team is up in Salem, New Hampshire, and they're collecting whatever evidence is up there. This happened just now as before we came up here.
Bill?
Any criminal history, political affiliations, any social media posts, anything of that sort that you can report to us about Mr. Valenti?
Nothing that I know of, Steve.
Behind him. Go ahead, white shirt.
Is there any indication that Mr. Valenti was planning any future attacks?
Nothing that we know of, no.
In the way back.
Special Agent Docs, can you also tell us if the connection, I know you said you can't talk too much about the MIT, but the fact that it was a physics professor out of MIT and in the physics building and he was studying physics, have you tied all that up, and does that lead, why target one person in Massachusetts and then a whole class here in Providence?
Yes, it is true that Mr. Valenti was a physics student. Also, we know that the MIT, the victim there, was in that discipline as well. I will tell you that there's multiple phases to an investigation, and so now, in a sense that we know the subject is deceased. Now that investigation continues to find out all of those answers to your question, sir.
Did he go to school with the professor? Did he go to school with the professor who was killed? Did Brown answer that?
It is believed that in Lisbon that those two individuals attended the same university in Portugal.
You have a follow-up in the back.
Muy poquito.
Go for it.
Sorry, empiezo desde el principio.
Lo que nos pueda resumir acerca del caso, ¿qué fue lo que conllevó a que ustedes pudieran dar con el paradero del sospechoso y las conexiones que tuvieron? ¿Cómo llegaron a rastrearlo y más que nada a qué atribuye todo esto?
So the question was if I can briefly explain how we got to this individual and what occurred. So, verdaderamente lo que pasó, obviamente el incidente del sábado 13 nos llevó a tomar evidencias, colectar evidencias de videos, de informaciones, y expliqué que es muy importante el trabajo de los policías y los detectives en el piso, haciendo el trabajo duro, recolectando videos, recolectando testimonios. En este tipo de casos recibimos información, obviamente, de los videos que colectamos. Nos dimos cuenta que había un vehículo de interés y una persona de interés desde el principio. Eso nos llevó a después informarnos de la placa del carro, la descripción del carro, y eso nos llevó a darnos cuenta de que esa persona había rentado el vehículo en una compañía en Massachusetts. Después de que fuimos a Massachusetts, cogimos videos de la persona. Esa persona era en la misma descripciones de la persona de interés de nosotros acá en la ciudad de Providence. De ahí pasamos con los agentes federales a investigar un poco más y llegamos a los récords financieros que nos llevó a Salem, New Hampshire, en esta noche. Allá hubo una entrada táctica del equipo del FBI y encontramos que esta persona se había quitado la vida ellos mismos. Ahora estamos investigando más si hay algo que necesitamos saber más de él.
Alex.
Colonel, or is there a note or manifesto of some kind, and is that providing any information about a motive or anything that they might have done leading up to?
Again, the FBI recovery team in forensics are up in Salem, New Hampshire. At this point, we don't have any of that.
Any indication of why now? What's the significance behind why this happened on Saturday?
That we don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we know the answer to that question. I think there's a lot of unknowns with respect to motive. I mean, I think that the real issue here is the key was to identify this person, as we talked about yesterday. I think there are other answers that are coming, but once we were able to identify him, thanks to that individual who came forward, who led us to a plate, which led us to a rental car, which led us to that he rented that car in his own name. That really broke the case open. But in terms of why Brown, I think that is a mystery. I think there may be something going on in Massachusetts that I'm not fully familiar with because we're working this angle, but I think the Massachusetts authorities may be able to share that. Yeah, I don't think we have any idea why now or why Brown, why these students, why this classroom. That is really unknown to us, and it may become clear. I hope that it does, but it hasn't as of right now.
Fox, go ahead.
This is for the Colonel or the Attorney General. At 2:16, there was a surveillance video that showed the second person that apparently blew this case wide open, and also Mr. Valente. You see them disappear behind bushes. Was this second person following the shooter? Did he recognize him and confront him? What was that interaction like? And I have a follow-up.
That's a great question, and I'll be all explained in the affidavit that the general stated that it will be released. But I'll give you a brief sort of explanation about that. The person that we wanted to speak with had an interaction with this individual earlier in the day, then observed him later at that time, what you just stated, and decided that he was going to encounter him and asked him why he was inside Brown. At that point, the subject of interest, Mr. Neves, actually ran. He was caught up by our person that we wanted to speak with. There was sort of a conversation between the two of them, and Neves asked him, "Why are you harassing me?" And at that point, the person that broke the case walked away. And that information was critical to us because he was able to corroborate what our detectives were seeing on video, and he was able to provide a great explanation.
And my follow-up question
Yes.
is, why did it take a citizen to notice a suspicious person right next to Brown University and not the police? And also, how long was the vehicle parked where it was? And was it days, hours, minutes? What are we talking
It appeared to be days as far as the evidence. Why would a civilian observe that to be suspicious? It's a great point. And I like the fact that you're mentioning that and bringing that up. That's what we should all be doing, right? And it's just personality. Some people are more interested in finding out what others are doing. In this particular case, this person decided that he wanted to, and I'm glad he did.
Shouldn't the police be interested in that, not citizens? That's what I was
In the back.
Now that the suspect, Attorney General, now that the suspect won't be prosecuted, can you explain what he yelled in the classroom to America tonight so people can
Sure.
feel a little more comfortable?
Sure.
Was it something, terrorist related? Was it something specific to the kids in that class?
Yeah.
What did he say? Can you now tell us?
Yeah, well, back to that question just for a minute, just to clarify that. They had a interaction in the bathroom in Barris and Holly. So, I don't know, the Providence Police is obviously not going to patrol Barris and Holly. That's a question, frankly, for Brown and their police department. So they had an interaction there, and then our citizen, followed him out because to him, as he explained it to us, this guy did not belong there. And so that's why he followed him out. In terms of what was said, I don't know any more today than what I told you yesterday, or the day before. There are some witnesses who said he said nothing. There are some that say he made a barking noise. Don't ask me. I don't know why. And that's it. There is no other spoken word beyond that we are aware of as we stand before you tonight. And we have spoken to everybody that we have been able to locate who's been inside that building.
And just to the special agent in charge, my follow-up question is, can you just be clear to the people of Massachusetts, and I know you said the people in Norfolk County and investigators in Mass, but you did say a few days ago that you talked to the colonel of the state police and said there's no connection between Brookline and what happened here in Rhode Island. But now you're saying there was a connection, so are you saying that he shot up Brown University, then 2 years later he was at this house in Brookline to shoot this MIT professor, and then he just drove up to Salem, New Hampshire for no reason? How did he get into a storage facility?
No, I think that's a great question. My actual statement was that we didn't see a connection at that time. But absolutely, I spoke to the colonel. Right now, that case is being resided over by U.S. Attorney Leah Foley. They're having a press conference at 10 o'clock tonight, I believe. I think at that time, they will speak to that particular case. I would be getting a little bit ahead of my skis if I spoke to that case without consultation with Leah Foley and her team, as we've been in the trenches working this up to the minute today, sir.
I guess 2 days ago you didn't know they were connected. Now you're saying they appear to be.
Yes, and that's how cases often go. I would say at that time, when that question was asked of me, there was no indication of a link at that time. As we've talked throughout this week, these breadcrumbs develop, and we'll see what she has to say today at 10 p.m.
Yeah, if I could just, I just want to jump in here on that, please. I just want to jump in here on that because it's a good question. It's an important one. So just to put everyone's mind at ease who's listening now, he didn't just drive to some random storage area. We found records with the help of the FBI and others that was his storage area. So he rented a car in Boston. He drove it. We were able to find that car in New Hampshire. We were able to find evidence in the car from looking at it from the outside that connected this individual to our crime scene here in Rhode Island. We were able to find visual evidence of him inside that storage facility, which, in my judgment, matches him to the Massachusetts scene. So you'll hear more, as the special agent said, but there is no question that was his storage unit, that he had a particular car, that we found that car because of this citizen coming forward and giving us a description of the car, and then our individual who came forward, we knew he was telling the truth because we could see it on the videotape. And so that was a series of things that broke this case, and that led us to Salem, where the suspect was found dead.
Steph. I believe to be living in Miami. Did he fly here at some point? How long was he in Providence for, and when did he obtain the guns?
Go ahead, Oscar.
Yeah, he did, like I guess it will be in the affidavit, but he did fly into Providence, I believe, early October, I believe. That's the right date. And what was the other question? I'm sorry, Steph.
And did he buy the guns here, or did he get the guns?
So I'm sorry, I can't answer. Yeah.
We don't know the answer to that, Steph, as we stand here right now.
Okay, you can't fly with them, so assuming he got them sometime after he arrived?
Well, that's possible. What we do know is that he was moving around New England in that October, November, and December area. You remember, we just we know that there's a body in New Hampshire. We know that there are guns at the scene. It still remains to be examined, comparing those guns to the ballistics evidence we have in Rhode Island, and I imagine they'll do that in Massachusetts, but again, that's somebody else's investigation. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we match the DNA. But we are 100% confident that this is our target, and that this case is closed from a perspective of pursuing people involved.
And Steph, just to add, I think Special Agent Doc stated, obviously we didn't know who he was. And so it's very difficult to know what a person did prior without any knowledge of who that person is.
Dan.
Can I just ask Special Agent this question? It sounds like from everything everybody's saying that the person who came forward to speak to you is kind of a hero in this story in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
We know that there's a $50,000 reward. Did he get the reward?
You know, I will say that in this particular situation, that individual will likely get absolutely some aspect out of that award. We've had a lot of other tips, I will tell you as well, that have come in from the public. And so I don't deal typically with the distribution of those rewards. But I mean, it would be logical to think that absolutely that individual would be entitled to some of that reward. Yes, sir.
Second row, red shirt. Go ahead. Yeah, you.
Thank you. Fox News Digital. Do we know when or how the suspects left Providence? For the Colonel.
Well, we know he left Providence and committed a homicide in another state. On that, but we don't know. I'm sorry. How did he leave?
No, do we know when he left Providence?
Yeah, when he left. That's what as far as we know that he left, but we didn't. I believe his last activity was obviously when we found out he was in another state committing another crime.
Pat.
Pat Ford, Coalition Radio. I'll throw this out to all of you, with particular regards to the Brown University president. A recurring theme for the last few days has been an outreach, ultimately successful, to the people of Rhode Island and the people of New England to track this individual down, while at the same time, we've got this sort of passive-aggressive criticism of individuals who are being actively asked to engage via social media, who are wildly spreading rumors, some of which couldn't have possibly emanated anywhere than law enforcement. And I do have a follow-up. So would anyone like to respond to that? I mean, it's kind of condescending to a lot of people. I know, Governor, if you're confused, that's not uncommon. But the...
All right, that's uncalled for.
the
All right, we're moving on. Current. No,
the person
current.
Came forward with the case-breaking tip. Was that information originally posted online, or was that person encouraged to come forward based on what people online?
Correct. There was a tip that was placed online, and obviously we were doing our due diligence to find out who that tipster was. And then we were able to identify this person who we wanted to speak with, and then we learned that that person was actually the same person that put the tip on that up that you're speaking about.
Brian.
The
sorry?
images. That person live in the area.
It was the same person that we brought into the police station to speak with.
The images
Brian.
that you showed at the beginning, where you can see Mr. Valente's face, where were those images taken from?
They were taken from the car rental business place that we learned
So
about.
none of them were at Brown?
No.
President Paxson, if you could, the situation is described that you had the suspected gunman and this other person had an encounter in the engineering building hours before the shooting. I had been told by an employee that there had been concerns raised at Brown previously about people getting in the building. Have you heard those, and was anything done to address those concerns about people getting into the building?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think we're going to have to look back and say, you know, we don't know how this person got in. We don't know when they came in. We do know that the building was unlocked that day for exams, and that's something we're going to have to look
Had you heard
into.
concerns from staff members in the past
I
about
have
security at the
not
building?
personally heard concerns, but, yeah.
Dan.
President Paxton, Dan Janney from NBC 10. I want to go back to the question I asked you Saturday night when I first arrived on the scene. There were no cameras in this building. And law enforcement, some that are standing up behind you, have said if Brown had cameras in that part of the building, we would have gotten this guy. And it may have stopped this swirling action. Can you answer that question for me?
Well, I don't think we have said the locations of cameras at Brown.
But there's no cameras in that building because why would they take it from a rental car agency?
We have 1,200 cameras at Brown.
But not in that building.
We have some in that building. It's a large complex. And I think what you would see is the video evidence in this case, from my perspective, I'm not a law enforcement agent, has been incredibly helpful. The moving of the person around the neighborhood, those video images, they help crack this case. So I think video was important. And as the Attorney General explained at a recent press conference, this individual was not spending his time on the Brown campus. He came into a building on the edge of the campus. He left. He was in the neighborhoods. The investigation focused on the neighborhoods. The video was there. And that was really, really instrumental in cracking the case.
And
but
my
you
second
can ask them.
and this is my follow-up, Madam President, if you'd stay at the podium. Yes, video played a big role in this case. The neighbor's video, the rental car video, but not the video from the building that he walked in freely both before when he got in the confrontation and when he came back in and decided to kill people. You didn't have cameras in that building. Just say it so we can get this over it. And my next question is, will you put
Dan, you
cameras
got
in,
one follow-up.
will
Yeah.
you put the cameras in the building? Will
Yeah.
there be more cameras in that building?
Yeah, you know, I think we need to look back. We'll look at everything that is done, but I do not think a lack of cameras in that building it had anything to do with what happened there. And we will
Thank
go
you, Madam
forward.
President.
Thank you.
Chris.
Question?
Tom.
Tom Quinlan, WPRO. Colonel Perez, I'm hearing from sources that the person that identified the shooter happened to be a homeless person that either lived around or inside that Barris and Holly building. Can you confirm more about this person for us? And then I have a follow-up for President Paxson.
I'll tell you there was a person that was pretty attentive about his surroundings. I'll tell you there was a person that was very cooperative and helpful to this investigation. And I'll tell you that he was a great individual that actually assisted us in getting us to this point where we're at. I'll tell you that. He was, yes.
Yeah, I have to say, he was incredibly articulate, and his testimony, had we needed it, would not only have been credible, it would have been persuasive. He was as outstanding a witness as I've seen, and he deserves a lot of credit, you know, recognizing there's a gunman on the loose, that the gunman knows he had this interaction with him, and he didn't, once he knew that we were looking for his help, I mean, he came forward within an hour, and that person deserves a tremendous amount of credit. I don't know whether he's going to get the reward or not, but if I had a vote, he would.
All right, Tom, you got to follow. Are you done? Go ahead.
My question was for Chair Chapman, if you wouldn't mind. In October, the Brown Daily Herald reported that you had a vote of no confidence in your leadership, and students were concerned for their safety and the fact that you had prioritized desk jobs over having over field jobs and having more people patrolling the campus. Now, in light of this, do you accept any kind of responsibility for this? And now that we've given these prior warnings, are you going to reevaluate how the Brown police operate in the future now, so this doesn't happen again and these students can feel more safe on campus when they return?
Great. So as I stated earlier, I'm profoundly proud of the men and women of public safety and profoundly proud of our police department. We will continue with the heroic work that they've done and continue to work side by side with our partners. And everything else that comes with that is a continual effort to do what is best for the safety and security of our campus.
But will you reassess how the people are allocated within your department?
Every single day, we work and endeavor to keep our campus safe, whatever that entails and all that that entails.
In the back.
Yes, Kim, thank you. I was wondering, maybe this is a question for the Colonel. Can you talk about, you said that 2 weapons were found in Valente's car. Was that one of those weapons, the gun that was used to shoot here in Brown? Has that weapon been found? Can you speak to that?
That's all part of this continuing investigation. This just before we came downstairs, actually, as you all were watching, that was developing up in Salem, New Hampshire.
Can you say whether or not that the weapons were purchased?
Hold on a second.
Yeah, those firearms were found at the deceased body, not in a car. So he killed himself inside the storage unit, and the firearms were found at his in the area of his thigh and in the area of his feet. It was not in a car. There was evidence that was observed from outside the car that matched our crime scenes, meaning mask, clothing, satchel, which you can see on that video. And there was a main plate over a Florida plate. This guy was changing plates. One of the reasons it was so hard to find was he knew what he was doing. He was changing plates. And so, that's why the collective work of following and finding this car was made more difficult, because this guy was changing plates. So we got a main plate and we got a Florida plate on the same car in New Hampshire.
Patrick.
As he was a...
Oh, I'm sorry. Especially.
I was just going to add.
Please.
Tom
Greco
again
from
ATF, it's okay. As far as the ballistics evidence, I know that the last question concerned matching the guns found to the crime scene. As several people up here have said, this investigation is ongoing, and in many ways, in some ways, just beginning. Those weapons that were found at the scene, we will be using our tools such as NIBIN to compare the ballistic evidence to see if we have any matches. So we use those tools to rule things in and to rule them out as well. So we'll be following up on that throughout the remainder of the investigation.
Patrick.
Neves Valente was a Portuguese national. Under what status was he in the country, and how did he get into the country? Do we know at this point? And I have a follow-up after that.
You have that,
Yeah.
Oscar?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I do. So as far as we know, he had a student visa. He had came in here with a student visa, and we also had learned that he had applied to get a green card.
Do we know, sorry, I have a question. And for President Paxson, does Brown have
And
any-
Patrick, if I could just be clear on that, he got that lawful permanent resident status in September of 2017.
Thank you, I was going to ask, but then, and for President Paxson, has Brown had any communication from Neves Valente in the period after he left until now?
As far as I know, no. He has really gone off our radar. We will continue to cooperate with the police as they continue with the investigation to find anything we can find about him. But his last class that he took at Brown was in 2001.
Straight back.
This question's for the Colonel or the Attorney General. If you hadn't focused on the wrong person of interest on day one, do you think the professor in Massachusetts could be alive?
Well, from the beginning, I've told you that this investigation is extremely complex and intense. And so we used every resource as soon as we responded to the call. I stated that earlier. I'm proud of the men and women of this department. Yes, we did find somebody that we thought obviously was the person, but we continued on. We continued on investigating. We continued on canvassing the areas. We continued on with video. And that's why we ended up where we're at now.
Yeah, if I could just jump in here, I just want to continue to answer that question. It's an important one. And the answer to that is this, and I tried to convey it a couple of days ago. We broke ourselves out into teams. So while the Providence team and the state police team and the ATF team were working here in Providence to follow up leads, develop whatever video evidence we can, which eventually led to all the steps that you've seen and are laid out in the affidavit, which is on our website, and it is multiple pages. You'll see the progression. So while the FBI were working Coventry, we were working here. Now, you may ask, well, what was it about Coventry that made us, for those of us who've been in law enforcement for a long time, why did we have to run that lead to ground? Here's why. When the FBI confronted him, initially, he was not cooperative. When they entered the room to secure it, there were guns in the room. One of them had a laser sight. The witnesses had told us there was a laser sight used in the course of the attack. Okay, we had to run that to ground. We couldn't just, not run that to ground. That was a very promising lead. But that's why you don't get over your skis about, and word choice is important. So while we had to test those ballistics and test the DNA off those guns, and that DNA ruled this guy out, okay? But we had to run that lead to ground. But while we're running that lead to ground over the course of Sunday, for the most part, my memory's correct, we were working other leads, which eventually led us through a recreation by the great work of the team, including the marshals, by the way, that are up here. Movements, image of our cooperating witness comes in, and you've heard the rest. So, this is the way these investigations work. You don't chase one and stop. We have chased more than one lead over the course of the last 4 to 5 days. There was one lead that we followed, didn't work out. There was another lead that we followed, didn't work out. There was another lead that we followed, didn't work out. So that's, at least in my mind, 5 different leads that one worked out, 4 didn't. But you're running them all down at the same time. So I can't offer any comfort in that regard, but I don't believe that we would have found this person any sooner, given the evidence that was available to us.
The way back.
Can you say why it took so long to get the tipster's tip? It looks like he posted on Reddit on Monday and then said on Reddit that he told the FBI. Was it lost in the FBI's tip?
We received the tip about that post and immediately acted on it. And so that's exactly what occurred. As soon as the tip came in, we had a tip center upstairs that was staffed, as I mentioned earlier, by detectives and agents. They were going through hundreds of tips that were coming in, hundreds. We were vetting them through, ruling them out, just like the general stated. We were making sure that whatever came in, we checked it to its entire to ensure that we weren't missing anything. And so when we got to that tip, obviously, it led us to that person that we wanted to speak with, and I told you the rest earlier. So.
Yeah, and I just want to complete that too, because this is important. This person had to come forward. That's why we put the picture out. Once we put the picture out, he came forward, right? But we didn't know who that person was. We knew about what was on Reddit, but we didn't know who that person was. That's why when we identified another person, we didn't know when that person came forward that he was the Reddit poster. He then told us he was, okay? So all of these things kind of happened in that sequence.
Go ahead, Chris.
This Valente figure, this is a question for President Paxton. Do we know why he left school early in 2001? Did he have a history of mental illness that was expressed during that time or reported at that time?
No, we learned his name very, very recently, and we haven't had a chance to really dig into the records. But we will if it helps with the investigation.
This is another question about
We get a
student-
follow-up question.
This is another question about a student visa. You said he's here on a student visa now. What school is he affiliated with? He's here since he's not here.
General,
Yeah, so he's not here on a student visa now. He was initially, and then he applied for and received lawful permanent resident status in September of 2017. Okay?
Go right here.
What was Mr. Valente's profession, and have you searched his residence?
Again, as I stated earlier, we just identified who obviously that person, and this developed pretty quickly. So that's all part of the investigation that's coming.
And can you talk about, was there any interaction between him and law enforcement before he died?
No, not that we know.
I have a follow-up to her.
There you
And
go.
that is, do you know any associates of his, family members, friends, roommates? And if there are any in the United States, did any of them come forward through the process of this investigation?
No, not at this time. This evolved extremely quickly. We've been at this for 6 days. And so here we are, and we now identify who the person is. We're about to make an apprehension. As I stated earlier, he took his own life. But that's all part of the investigation that will continue about him. Go ahead.
Okay, so for President Paxson, Chief Farrow said he had no known criminal history that you know of. You were asked about possible mental illness while he was here. When he was at Brown, did he have any grievances, disputes with anyone, any problems, any disciplinary issues, any problems at all that were documented?
Not that we know of at this point. I mean, again, these are very, very old records, you have to understand. We learned about this very recently. And I think going forward, as we want to learn more, we will cooperate with the investigation to give them the information they need.
Go ahead, in the white shirt.
Hi, Brittany, WCBB. This question is for Colonel Perez. You mentioned that Claudio was the primary suspect, primary focus from the beginning. If that's the case, can you elaborate more on why there was someone else detained initially, and the lead that led you to that person to being detained initially, if Claudio was the primary focus from the beginning?
Yeah, so.
And I have a follow-up.
Sure, Brittany. Great question. So we have received a tip about that first person. We have received a tip about him wanting to get a permit to carry a firearm. And that led us to also learn that he was a person who potentially could be, it was just where he was denied, and then he went to another department, and the descriptions led us there. So we had it vetted through. Obviously, the FBI responded, followed through that whole tip, ended up.
You're watching a live news conference out of Providence. The suspected Brown University killer and killer of a professor at MIT is dead. Police say he was 48-year-old Claudio Neves Valente, a former physics student at Brown University. He was of Portuguese descent.
So we've been hearing about the investigation around Brown. They say this was obviously tied to the MIT murder. We're going to go to Boston now. The U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts is holding a press conference with that angle of the investigation. All right, so we're working to get audio there. Why don't, in the meantime, while we work to get audio there, just recap where we are, because there have been a lot of huge developments this evening. So they have identified the shooter once again as Claudio Neves Valente, a Portuguese national who came to the United States more than 25 years ago to attend Brown University, where he attended for roughly a semester. Let's go back out to MIT, or to Massachusetts now, where we're hearing more on the MIT angle of this.
And David Holcomb, Holcomb.
Will you be emailing the PDF?
We'll email the PDF, but it's going to take me a minute to get back down there. But again, if you're on the live stream and you need this photo, Caroline and I will try to get it to you, like, now. All right, so.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, it does not seem that they're ready to start that news conference up in Boston. So again, the suspected Brown University killer and killer of a professor at MIT is dead. Police say he was 48-year-old Claudio Neves Valente, a former physics student at Brown University. He was a Portuguese national. That's a picture right there of him. Valente was found dead in a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. This is relief for so many people in our community. because all of you have been on edge since this happened, and we can't lose sight of the fact that 2 students are dead, other people are injured at the hands of Claudio Neves Valente, according to all authorities. And we still, though, don't have a motive. We don't know why this happened. Why did he do this? Why did he choose Brown University? Why did he go after those students? He hadn't even been a student for many, many years there. Why did he go up to Brookline, Massachusetts, and kill the MIT professor? That person also into physics and also was from Portugal.
Yeah, information that we hope comes to light over the course of the investigation that continues over these next few weeks and presumably months. Now, one of the interesting things from the press conference out of Providence, yesterday we showed you that photo shared by Providence police of a second person they were looking to talk with who they believed had contact with the suspect, Claudio, right before the shooting. So we're told within an hour of posting that photo, that person came forward, and that person told Providence police that he confronted Claudio and asked him why he was hanging out around Brown. He was very happy to talk with them and provided information that ultimately led police to that car.
Yeah.
One of the other interesting things they were saying about him covering his tracks, this was clearly a very calculated murder that he pulled off in several instances. They said that he had different license plates. He had a Florida plate at one point. He then put on a Maine license plate to cover his tracks as he made his way up north after Brown University, killing then the MIT professor in his home 2 days later, and then heading to that storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire.
I'm wondering if we can go back to that news conference at Providence Police Headquarters, because that news conference is still going on. So let's go back out there.
To learn that this person had rented there, so a storage unit, and so we responded immediately, and we found that the vehicle that we were looking for of interest was parked there.
Just one follow-up here.
Okay, go ahead.
Chief, can you speak a little bit more to that, again, identification of the vehicle of interest and the person who did that? And as you said, there was video captured. Could walk us through that aspect of this? Was this the witness who provided to you the vehicle? Can you walk us through how that vehicle of interest entered the investigation? And then I have a follow-up.
Correct, yeah, it was part of the tip that was posted actually, and then also the tipster had called and had stated that this individual had a fob and was trying to enter a vehicle that was parked on Benevolent. And so because of that, we obviously knew there was a vehicle and there was a description of a vehicle. When we brought him in, he collaborated further on that vehicle. We put it out through Flock, the description of it, and we learned that within that time period, there was only a certain amount of vehicles that came up with those description fitting it. So our detectives obviously stayed on that and ended up finding this vehicle with Florida plates, and that's how we ended up with that specific vehicle. Then we had learned that the vehicle also potentially could have changed their plates, and as I stated earlier, we were able to find the vehicle on Flock, actually get the actual plate, learn that it was a car rental, which brought us up to learn that, that we needed to learn more at the rental place about the individual, which we did. And then further later, we find out, again, doing all the work that they did upstairs, I think it was tremendous if you had a chance and an opportunity to see how much work was put in, because it was bits and pieces of information. It's almost like putting a puzzle together. You only have just a few pieces, and you're building it. And that, later on, led us with the financial records to learn that he rented a storage unit in New Hampshire, and that's why we ended up with
Kate, your follow-up. To that one for the Chief or the Attorney General. You mentioned, again, weighing that public interest versus the information that was available to law enforcement at the time, as this person, again, considered armed and potentially dangerous, was out there. The Chief just spoke to license plates changing on a variety of moments, if you will. But was it too fast-moving? Talk to us about weighing again that providing information to the public with an armed and dangerous individual and vehicle use that involved multiple license plates, and your decision not to sort of real-time inform the public of it.
Yeah, so we knew last night, who this guy was and that he had rented a car in Boston. So the question becomes, is he going to return the car to Boston? We got information he might return it to Connecticut. He didn't return it at all. But when we thought he might be returning it to the information, to the locations, we wanted to try to take him without him knowing we were coming. As soon as his name gets out there, he is going to be even more in the wind. And so the question becomes, if you think you might know where he is, right? Eventually you find the storage unit, right? So you're following that up. But initially you think he might return the car to Boston on Atlantic Avenue, I believe, or in Connecticut, perhaps to board a flight somewhere. You're weighing, can I take this guy because we know where he's going to be, and not alert him that we're coming. And so I would say this afternoon, we were going back and forth on that. But as the FBI and the ATF and our other partners, Providence Police, State Police, developed evidence as to where he was, ultimately in New Hampshire, we decided to pursue to that location. And there we found the car.
All right. Okay, we want to go up to Boston now, where the Attorney General of Massachusetts is talking about the MIT murder.
Agents breached a storage locker in Salem, New Hampshire, in search of Claudio Neves Valente, a Portuguese national we believed shot and killed 2 Brown University students and an MIT professor in Brookline, Massachusetts. Federal agents found Neves Valente dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The United States Attorney's Office in Boston, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire have been working throughout the day to establish probable cause to charge Neves Valente. Earlier today, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Massachusetts filed a criminal complaint under seal detailing the chain of events over the past 6 days, including information that led us to today's search of the storage locker in New Hampshire. This is what we learned during this multi-jurisdictional investigation. Neves Valente studied at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island on an F1 visa around 2000 to 2021. He eventually obtained legal permanent resident status. Previously, he attended the same academic program as the MIT professor Nuno Loureiro in Portugal between 1995 and 2000. Although Neves Valente appeared to reside in Florida, between November 26 and November 30 of this year, he rented a hotel room in Boston. On December 1st, he rented a gray Nissan Sentra with Florida plates from a car rental agency in Boston. That same day, he drove to the vicinity of Brown University, where his car was observed intermittently between December 1st and December 12th. On December 13th, Neves Valente entered an auditorium on Brown University's campus during a study session and began shooting at students, killing Ella Cook and Mohammed Aziz Umarzokov, and injuring 9 others. Between December 13th and December 14th, Neves Valente returned to Massachusetts. On December 15th, he murdered MIT professor Nuno Loureiro at Loureiro's home in Brookline, Massachusetts. At some point while he was in Massachusetts, he switched the plates on the Nissan Sentra to an unregistered plate out of Maine. Immediately following Professor Loureiro's murder, Neves Valente drove to a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire, where he had rented a storage unit in November of this year. Since the December 13th shootings at Brown and the December 15th shooting in Brookline, state, local, and federal law enforcement officials have been working hand in hand around the clock to identify the shooter and prevent him from inflicting further harm. I have said this before and will continue to believe when law enforcement agencies work together, crimes are solved and the public is protected. The information we provided to you tonight would not be possible without the dedicated men and women of law enforcement in multiple districts throughout New England, including the FBI, ATF, HSI, the U.S. Marshal Service, Massachusetts State Police, Rhode Island State Police, Providence Police, Brookline Police, and the Brown University Police. In addition, prosecutors from the Rhode Island Attorney General's Office and the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, and federal prosecutors from Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts all contributed to this result. I also want to thank Attorney General Pam Bondi for her support in coordinating the federal response.
Questions? Can you tell us anything about his motive and the 2 sets of victims and how they might be related and how he might be related to them?
That is not information that we can share right now, but as soon as that information becomes available, we will share that with the public.
Are you able to say anything of what led you to link the two crimes, perhaps initially?
Can you repeat the question so we can hear you more?
Yes, the question was how were we able to link him to the two crimes? So investigators identified the vehicle that he had rented in Boston and then drove to Rhode Island. And he was seen, the vehicle was seen outside of Brown, and there was security footage that showed a person who resembled him. There was financial investigations that were going on in the background that linked him not only to that car, but also to the hotels that he had rented and the car that he had used to not only drive to Rhode Island, but then back to Boston. And then there was the security footage that captured him within a half mile of the professor's residence in Brookline. And there is a video footage of him entering an apartment building in the location of the professor's apartment. And then later that evening, he is seen about an hour later entering the storage unit wearing the same clothes that he had been seen wearing right after the murder.
So you have an extensive video canvas as part of this investigation. That leaves you no doubt.
This is the evidence we have right now. We are coming to you tonight because the federal complaint was unsealed, and we wanted to provide you with the information and to assure the public that law enforcement collectively believe that we have the person, that we identified the person, and that person is dead, and that he was the person responsible not only for the Brown shootings, but for the Brookline shooting.
Can you speak to, before the self-inflicted gunshot, was there any interaction between law enforcement and Neville Valente? Like, any words exchanged or anything like that?
No, when investigators went into the storage facility tonight to execute the federal search warrant, he was dead.
Do you think he entered there this evening?
No.
He entered an hour after what happened in Brookline?
Yes.
And do you know how long that storage, did he rent that? Like how long?
Our understanding from the financial investigation is that he had rented a storage facility at the location in Salem, New Hampshire in November.
Can you confirm whether or not he used the same weapon in the Brown shooting as he did in the MIT shooting?
Ballistics investigation was ongoing and has not been completed at this time, so we're not going to comment on that.
Can you give us any sense of when you started to recognize perhaps that he was the same person? I know it was through a video, but when it sort of dawned on investigators that these two cases were related?
It was in the last 24 to 48 hours that my understanding, according to my understanding, is when the link began to be established. And that was mainly, he was using a phone that was obfuscating ability to track it. And he was using financial, not credit cards that were tied to his name. And so he was sophisticated in hiding his tracks.
According to the complaint that was unsealed, it says that Ms. Valente and the MIT professor had attended the same academic program together in Portugal from 1995 to 2000. Do you know if they knew each other? Or
My understanding is that they did know each other.
Have they been in communication since that last date?
I don't have any information to provide you.
Would you call this targeted?
We're still investigating the motive in this case and trying to, because like I said, he was very careful in his communications, and we just don't have any information right now to answer that question. But when we get that information, we will share it.
Was there anything else in the storage locker?
The storage locker in which his body was found, my information is that no.
Was that satchel in the storage
Yes.
locker? What was in it?
Can you repeat the question? I can't hear you online.
So the question was there anything else in the storage unit aside from the defendant's body? And the answer is he was found in there with his satchel There was nothing else found in there that I am aware of, but they're still in the process of searching that facility right now.
Did he kill himself right away?
We don't have any information when he killed himself, but he was dead when investigators found his body.
Can you tell us anything about his life? Like, I think you said the last known address was in Florida. Like, what he was doing? Was he working? Was he in the field of physics, which he had studied? Any sort of biographical stuff you can tell us about him?
Because his identity was only become aware to us in the last 24 hours, I can't provide you with any of that information right now, but I'm sure once we have a full understanding of what he has been doing, where he has been, aside from the time when he entered into New England in November, we will provide that information.
Besides the MIT professor, did you know any of the victims at Brown University personally?
We have no information that he knew any of the victims or anyone who was at that auditorium on the night that he went in and killed.
Have you been able to find anything about when he did attend Brown, whether there were any issues, if he was there briefly, was he kicked out, you know?
That information hasn't been provided to us yet.
Given what you see on the video of the MIT professor's home, is there any doubt that he was the intended target of the killing?
The information that I know, and again, the investigations are going to continue to be able to provide you with all the answers that you are asking, is that there was no doubt that he was the intended target.
What was inside that satchel?
That is information that is still being, the investigators are still on the scene right now conducting that investigation, and we haven't received information as to what was in the satchel.
Was there any suicide note?
No information right now.
How about in terms of the charges themselves? I mean, there was a crime in Rhode Island and also the one here. How does that sort of get sorted out? How does he get charged, et cetera?
So there are state crimes, including the murders, and then there are the federal crimes, which is one that we brought tonight. The jurisdictions are working together, and we have been sharing information together and encouraging everyone to share information that could result in solving the crimes that were committed in their jurisdictions. And we will continue to do that if there are any doubts that are left with closing out those investigations. We will continue to share all the information so that we can share with you whatever motivations come to light as to why these heinous crimes were committed.
Are you confident, I guess maybe that's not the right word, but do you believe that he acted alone, or is there any evidence that anyone else was traveling with him when he came here?
We have no information that he was acting in concert with anyone else right now.
Anything interesting found in the car?
That search is still underway, but we will provide you again with more information as soon as we get it.
Anything more you can tell us about, you said he hid in his own tracks. Can you talk about that a little bit, what he did?
So he was using an application on his phone, and there have been a couple of things. The Google phone doesn't allow officers to ping the direct location and get real-time location information about the phone. There was also beliefs that he was using SIM cards that were possibly European SIM cards that are carried through a provider in the United States but does not provide real-time information about tower connections.
You are watching U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, Lisa Foley, provide a press conference detailing more on the capture, really, of Claudio Neves Valente. He was found dead inside a storage unit this evening. They believe he was the person who carried out the shooting at Brown University, killing 2 students, as well as the person who killed an MIT professor this week in Brookline, Massachusetts. They think he acted alone. We've been hearing from officials in both Providence, Rhode Island, and now Massachusetts who say these crimes are linked.
Yes, again, authorities say they are sure that Claudio Neves Valente is the mass shooter at Brown University. He killed himself inside that storage facility. They found guns there. They think he acted alone. We don't know the motive yet. It was the car that linked him to Brown and Brookline and eventually Salem, New Hampshire, after he was identified by someone who knew him, shown in pictures that we showed you on the air as a person in proximity to the suspect.
NBC 10's Dan Janig and Brian Crandall were at that press conference at Providence Police Headquarters. They join us now with what they've learned. Dan, Brian.
Well, there, guys, obviously this is a big news conference, and you understand why now. It was delayed several times. So this is over. As the FBI agent Ted Duck said, that we got it, right? And I told you they were going to say something like that. This manhunt really picked up speed in the last 24 hours, and then even in the last few 8 hours, and it all came down to good old-fashioned police work. They recognized a car, and then there was the interaction with the individual who was also a former Brown student, with the suspect, who was also a Brown student for a time before he left. We don't know who that individual is 100% yet. We're going to go through this affidavit, but
yeah, there is a lot to unpack here,
Yeah.
and I will say that authorities did basically, I think, provide just about everything. So let's go back. You know, after the shooting, they took one person into custody that didn't turn out to be the right person. They put out the images of this other person, but it all ended up going back to an interaction, as you said, that happened before the shooting in the Barris and Holly engineering building.
Right.
Yesterday, the image that police put out of the person they wanted to talk to who had an encounter with the suspected gunman. That person they ended up talking to not long after that image went out yesterday, and that person, they said, provided a lot of the information. Let's hear from Attorney General Peter Nerona on what he says was the key here.
Within an hour, no more than 2, I think it was under an hour, that person came forward to 2 Providence police officers over on the east side and said he had information, that he was that person, and he had information that could help this case. And I remember last night watching his interview, and he blew this case right open. He blew it open. And that's how these cases sometimes go. You can feel like you're not making a lot of progress. You can feel like you're chasing leads and they don't work out. But the team keeps going, and that person led us to the car, which led us to the name, which led us to the photographs of that individual renting the car, which matched the clothing of our shooter here in Providence, that matched the satchel that we see here in Providence. He was found dead with a satchel, with 2 firearms, and evidence in the car that that matches exactly what we see at the scene here in Providence.
And again, by tracking the car that person identified, and again, interestingly enough, that person they talked to yesterday turned out he posted something on Reddit with that information on Tuesday, but they said they couldn't put all that information together. Well, anyway, they find the rental car that the suspect had rented apparently out of Boston, and they used flock cameras to be able to track it. We hear about that a lot. And then they used financial records to find that he had a storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. And that's where he turned out to be. And again, this is Claudio Neves Valente, a 48-year-old who was from Portugal originally, but was enrolled as a physics PhD student at Brown now some 25 years ago. And they said they really don't had any track of him afterwards, but they said during his studies, he would have been very familiar with the engineering building. He would have been there. And then there's also the link to the victim at MIT.
Right, and we have asked the question. So it appears that they were actually roommates back in Portugal.
The MIT professor.
The MIT professor, yes. Nobody in Brown. And he went back there and opened fire. We just heard from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston, who kind of laid out the case. What was really interesting about this news conference, and I know our producers back there are going to turn around my exchange with the president of Brown University, but they were right. They got video of this suspect from the neighbors, right? And then there was a great question you had. Then they got really good pictures from the rental car agency, but they never ever got pictures from the actual building where it happened, where he was actually in the bathroom and then left and then came back.
Yes, we now found out that he was in the building a couple of hours before the shooting, and that's where he had this apparently altercation with the person who ended up turning him in, or at least providing the information, and that person may get some of the reward, they're saying, too.
They probably should get all of the reward, but that's up to them. But that individual confronted the suspect in the bathroom, as they said here today, and said, "What are you doing in this school? How are you in here?" Right? Well, it was easy. There was no pass cards that day, and there was no cameras, and he knew that because he had been there years ago. So then there was some kind of altercation. Now let's fast forward to the video, Brian, the day of. So now they're suddenly coming on the corner of the bushes
in the same area.
In the same area. And police kind of hinted that the individual was maybe looking for him or something like that. And then that's when the suspect saw him and said, "Oh, and flew down the street." You should also point that the car that they picked up, police said what also made it very difficult is that they changed license plates. He changed a license plate it went back and forth from Maine a license plate to a Florida license plate. So they had the car and then they'd run a plate, and so.
And they say this person, Mr. Valente, was knew what he was doing. Very savvy. But what they don't know, and they don't know a motive. There's still a lot of what ifs, at least on this part. There seems to be a little bit more with the MIT killing. But at least with this part, there's been a lot of questions. Was anybody in the classroom specifically targeted? They still don't know that, but they say there were 44 shots fired. That's what the evidence shows.
I mean, we get caught up in Brown and we get caught up in the suspect, and we're all breathing a sigh of relief. Not only as a community we are, but when I heard that number of shots, you have kids, I have kids, you have kids. I can't imagine the fear of when that suspect opened fire in a classroom and these kids were just scurrying. You said that you just we're trying to go through the affidavit, and I think what Brian has to say is very, very powerful because it speaks to the human nature of this. We're trying to go through the affidavit. It's tough in our phones, but what you just read I thought was so powerful.
Yeah, at some point, and it's unclear exactly when, the police showed some of the victims who were in the hospital photos of the person they believed was the suspect, and at least one of the shooting victims got emotional and physically pushed back, and another knew immediately too. So they said, again, Peter Nerona, the Attorney General, said at the end, we're 100% confident we have the right person here. And again, they found 2 guns and the satchel that you see in the video. And again, there was the same jacket that we saw in the video from Nair Brown after the shooting that the suspect was wearing, that they have him on video at the rental car place as well.
Right. I want to just talk to my producer, Courtney Cole-Luca. Courtney, we have the colonel right here now, but we'll get him mic'd up. Let's toss to Leanna Folk. Leanna, you are in Salem, New Hampshire. Is it still an active scene right now?
Yeah, Dan, Brian, from what we're seeing here, a tow truck has just arrived to this storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. Investigators are basically saying this was the final stop in that trail that stretched from Providence, went through Massachusetts, and ultimately ended here in Salem. Now, according to newly released affidavit from the Attorney General's office, it was financial records, video surveillance, and even tips from the community that ultimately led here to a storage facility unit where Claudio Valenti's body was found. Now, investigators say this really all began with a post on Reddit. That post referencing a blue-gray Nissan with Florida license plates seen on Cook Street near Brown University the day of the shooting. Providence police then received a tip from the same Reddit user who told investigators they confronted Valenti over what they described as suspicious behavior around campus that day. Surveillance video later confirming the suspect was driving a gray Nissan Sentra with Florida plates. Police tracked that car to a Boston area rental facility where records confirmed Valenti rented the vehicle. Now, flock cameras tracked that vehicle to a storage facility in Salem where Valenti's body was found inside a unit he owned with multiple firearms. Now, what these documents do not answer is the why. It's the question on everyone's minds right now. Why did this happen? Why Brown? Why now? And that's a question that investigators say they'll be trying to answer for themselves as they continue on with this investigation. Dan?
All right, Leanna Falk doing a great job on the ground there in Salem, New Hampshire. We are back live now with the Colonel Perez, who has been credited not only by the mayor, the Colonel of Police, the FBI, as handling this case. And Colonel, I know you get a little emotional because, here's the kid that came from Columbia with no shoes, and now you're front and center in a national story that you helped solve. Tell us what you felt was the biggest break.
I think the biggest break obviously had to do with that individual that we were able to identify and ask them to come forward and give us his side of the story of what occurred, because we weren't sure if that person was with the actually person of interest that we were looking for, but then when he came over and actually himself saw a Providence police officer, says, hey, listen, I think you're looking for me. He came down and he was able to corroborate exactly and tell us exactly all the questions we had. When you look at a video, videos don't speak for themselves.
Right.
And so you're just looking at a piece of evidence and you're just not sure what's going on.
Right.
And so this individual was able to tell us, and not only tell us, but provide us with a description of a vehicle. And that was a key break, because then we put that through Flock, and then we were able to have several vehicles with that color. So,
Colonel, I want to go back, if we can, just so we can explain it. This individual you're talking about is in the building, and he sees the suspect come in the bathroom, the Attorney General says, and they have some kind of a fight.
Correct.
Or some kind of a disagreement. Can you just walk us through how that all happened?
yeah, it appears that this individual actually spends a lot of time at Brown, and so he saw this individual come in, and he wasn't sure. Someone that didn't look familiar to him, and so I'm not sure if it was an argument, whether there was a discussion between the two of them. Our subject of interest ended up leaving, and then this person, obviously very attentive to what's going on, observed him on the street again, and then decided that he was going to approach him just to ask him. And that's when you see in the video that our suspect of interest runs, and then this person's chasing him. And at that point, obviously, it was a concern for us because we weren't sure what occurred.
Right.
And so he explained to us that obviously he saw him inside Brown.
And saw him again.
And then saw him again.
And
then
he
he
wanted to just talk to him, and the
Correct.
suspect took off. Now, you said that he chased him. Did he end up catching up to him?
Oh, yeah, not only catched up to him, but got in front of him and says, what are you doing? You know, what is it that you're trying to do with Brown? And the person says to him, why are you harassing me? And so that called our person that came and spoke to us sort of his attention and says, you know, I'm not harassing you. And then he walked away. That was it. That was the extent of that interaction.
Wow.
Colonel, we know now that there was a Reddit post earlier
Correct.
this week by that same person. What
Correct.
happened there? It seemed like, was that looked at right away? I know you said here that you didn't know until just yesterday that it was the same person who made the post, but was that post looked at? Because it did talk about that
Correct,
same
yeah.
car with the plates.
Correct, yeah, we got a tip that came in through the tip center about this post, and so immediately we pulled it. And then it was interesting because we said to ourselves, whoever wrote that post had to be there because that's what we're seeing on the video. And so what we actually did was we started to figure out who wrote it, reached out to Reddit. There's actually legal requirements for you to get that information from that post, which we were able to get. It was denied at first, but then we were able to get an angle and got some info as far as who actually posted it. We found an individual that actually said, no, we thought it was him, but he actually had reposted what was posted originally. So then we had to go back to the original post, and we were in the process of trying to find out who wrote the original post until we found this tipster who came in and admitted that he actually wrote the original post.
Tell me what it was like just generally today, as we're all waiting to hear what happens, but we know that you've now identified somebody,
Yes.
and you know this is happening, and you're tracking him to New Hampshire. What is that like as you're trying to figure out where exactly he is?
I'm sorry, read that again?
What is it like when you're waiting to find out where this suspect is? You now know who he is, you think you have an idea where he is, but what's it like trying to figure that out and wait for the word from me?
It's difficult. I tell you that you're just standing by. It's no different than me. I got 32 years of service. I worked in narcotics, conducted search warrants, and you wait for that last minute, and you're desperate to get the job done. And then so it's a lot of pressure because you don't know. You know, it's a lot of pressure. It's just.
Right. Colonel, the individual that kind of broke open the case. We haven't read through the affidavit ourselves because of our phones and things just breaking, but there was a report that he was homeless, a former Brown student who was homeless who actually lived in that building.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell you because I'm not really sure, but I know that in my eyes, he's just a great person who provided great info and broke the case, and I'll tell you that I'm happy and to the sense that I'm glad that he took action. Right. Because if it wasn't because of him, we could still be working. I'm just not sure. So.
Do you think we will ever know the motive?
I think so. I think that, I truly believe in the federal agencies, and their assistance was incredible, finding small details. And so I think that I'm sure they will continue. Obviously, we have this homicide that occurred at MIT, and so they're going to continue to do the due diligence. I know our detectives obviously are interested to find out more, and so we'll continue to do. This is obviously this is great for our community. I'm very happy to bring justice to the victims, families, and to bring peace to our city. But I know for a fact that we'll continue to just because we're interested to see who this individual was and why did he pick Brown.
There was a lot of scrutiny of this investigation from the start. Obviously, it's a big national story. There was a lot of scrutiny, a lot of criticism, a lot of people online who have a lot of things to say. What is your response now that this is over?
I'll tell you, the first thing I'll tell you is my accent gets stronger every time I get tired. I haven't gotten an hour of sleep.
Your accent, you
My
said.
accent, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay,
So,
no,
and I'm tired now. But I noticed that my wife tells me that it was something that they couldn't understand, or something to that extent. And so, what do I tell them is that this is a very difficult profession.
Right.
And as a police officer, you have to have patience. You have to have patience, and you have to stay focused on the mission. There's a lot of noise that's around you, but at the end of the day, you got a job to do, you got a responsibility to do, and that's to find the person that was responsible for this tragedy. So I stayed focused, I stayed the track, and when we were upstairs, we will make sure that the officers stayed with the passion to find out who was responsible. This is our city.
Toward the end of the press conference, somebody else was talking. I thought I caught your eye. You looked like you were a little emotional. Were you? What was going on?
No, I think that, I saw how hard these guys work, and that's all it was.
Yeah, he's emotional. He cries on a dime.
I do.
No, but I think it's important to say, because it almost kind of reminds me of the story you told about your father, where people were doing things when you were a kid, right? They made a thing about sneakers, and you reacted, and you got into a fight, and he said, "Don't you ever do that?" And it kind of reminded me of the criticism you received, right? Because you want to fight back when someone says something negative, and it's hard to.
No, I just think there's not much about fighting back. I think there's just, especially with the parents. I think about the parents. I think about the victims. Yeah. I think about the students. This is our city, man, and so we want to make sure that they feel safe, and it's just unfortunate. The whole incident is unfortunate. I feel terrible for the parents, but I am pleased that we were able to bring justice to them.
All right. Colonel,
thank you for
we appreciate your time, and thank you for keeping our city safe and wrapping this up. We certainly appreciate it. So there you heard it. Colonel Perez, he was credited by not only the FBI and by the Colonel Weaver and the Attorney General. This is a guy who was, you may have known from my story about him, came from Columbia, no shoes on his feet, grew up in Providence, got promoted to chief, and then was faced with a huge national story and a devastating tragedy. And I think that's probably why he may be a little emotional. You know what? I think we're all a little emotional. The community, obviously, around Brown, we are a community, and someone came into town and they messed with us and they took some of our lives. And as a community, whether we were journalists or people who live or shop owners, I think you realize the sense of community in times like this.
Yeah, and a lot of people on edge for the last week, not knowing if the gunman was still around. It now turns out maybe he wasn't, but he went somewhere else and killed somebody.
Right.
So that's not to be lost here.
Right.
And as I said, it's quite the turn of events with what happened here. Again, as the colonel said, he thinks we will find out at some point what the motive was, and hopefully that puts a lot of questions to rest. But clearly, this is the person they say is the gunman, Claudio Neves Valente, had studied at Brown in that building more than 2 decades ago. So it was familiar. You just don't know what led him back there now, and they're still trying to figure out what his movements were in the time beforehand.
And the big question is, who is this mystery man that solved the crime? Really, when you think about it, right? Amazing, incredible events. What an afternoon, Patrice.
What an afternoon. Yeah, a big sigh of relief tonight, and you have to have a thick skin. You have to have a thick skin to be a police officer, and we see what happened when they finally were able to get that work done. Good police work all around. All right, we want to get out to NBC 10's John Perrick.
Yeah, so obviously 2 angles to this story here. There's the Providence side, the Brown investigation. We find out it's linked to the MIT investigation, and they held a separate press conference this evening. John Perrick joins us live from that press conference in Boston. John?
Emily and Patrice, for the past week, of course, we learned about that separate shooting that happened in Brookline, Massachusetts, and investigators had been looking into what led up to the shooting, who's behind that shooting. Residents in Brookline had been asking, where are my answers? Well, tonight they received their answer. This guy right here, the same person who shot and killed 2 Brown University students on Saturday, is responsible, the FBI says, for the shooting in Brookline, Massachusetts that left a MIT professor dead. Now, here's the affidavit. We just came out of a news conference here with the U.S. Attorney of Massachusetts, ATF, and the FBI. And in short, what we learned is that the FBI believes, they have reason to believe, that the suspect in the Brown shooting, after he walked into that engineering building on Saturday, he then left and went to Brookline, Massachusetts. Authorities believe that's where he then shot and killed an MIT professor at that professor's home. Now, the affidavit's about 5 pages long, and I had the opportunity to ask the U.S. Attorney a few questions about it. First off, my question was if she would characterize this as targeted, She wouldn't answer that question directly. She said that they need to let the investigation continue to play out before she would use that word. I also asked her to kind of paint the picture as to what that storage unit was like, what was in there when investigators went in and found the suspect's body. She told me for the most part it was empty, but she said where they found the body wasn't actually in the unit that the suspect had rented out. It was a separate unit. That was something worth note. But again, right now, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney of Massachusetts are linking the shooting at MIT back to the shooting at Brown. I'm live in Boston. John Perrick, NBC 10 News. Guys, back to you.
Okay, thanks for the update. All right, here's what we know about the suspect. Claudio Manuel Neves Valente was 48 years old. Authorities say he's a Portuguese national with a last known address in Miami. He enrolled at Brown in the fall of 2000. In fact, came over here on a student visa and then became a permanent resident. He joined the graduate school to earn a master's in science PhD program in physics. And he took a leave of absence in 2001 and then withdrew in 2003.
During the press conference, the president of Brown, Christina Paxson, was asked about what they knew about his current affiliation with Brown and what his experience was like when he was a student here. This is what she had to say.
During his time at Brown, Neves Valente was enrolled only in physics classes. The majority of physics classes at Brown have always been held within the Barris and Hawley classrooms and labs. Now, detailed records indicating where specific courses were held don't extend back to 2001. But we can say that physics classes typically require access to specialized equipment, including demonstration carts that are a fixed asset in some of Barris and Hawley classrooms. So I think it's safe to assume that this man, when he was a student, spent a great deal of time in that building for classes and other activities.
Now, all of this came to a head hours ago in Salem, New Hampshire, where eventually this man was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
NBC 10's Leanna Falk has been on scene watching this investigation now transpire. Leanna, what's it look like at this hour?
Emily, Patrice, things are quiet here outside this storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. The last thing that we saw was a tow truck arrive, likely to remove that vehicle. This is a key piece of evidence for investigators. It was a Nissan that was found and located through not only tips, but also video surveillance that confirmed that the suspect here, Claudio Valente, came here to Salem, New Hampshire, to this storage facility. Now, investigators have confirmed that his vehicle is here, the one that he rented from that Alamo in Boston, but they also confirmed that he owns a storage unit here, and it's that storage unit where they say that his body was found along with multiple firearms and multiple pieces of evidence that connected him to not only the shooting at Brown University, but the one at in Brookline of that MIT professor as well. So there is a lot to gain from this scene here, although we're not seeing most of it because of where they've stationed us, but we know that what's happening on the inside is a lot of gathering, a lot of information, because there are still several questions that remain from this investigation. As I mentioned before, people want to know why this happened. They want to know why Brown, why now, how did this happen? We know that it was we know the suspect attended the university about 20-something years ago. So what brought him here? The video you're seeing right now is some of the work that's been happening here in Salem, New Hampshire. Investigators have been kind of moving in and out of the facility over the past few hours. We know that there are multiple jurisdictions here on scene, the FBI being one of them, Providence Police being another, and they have really swarmed this facility where we know now that the suspect owned a unit and that his vehicle is here. And what's really amazing about this is that 24 hours ago, we would have never thought that this would end right here. I mean, we think about what was given to us. It was a photo of someone that might have been near the person of interest. That was all of the new developments that came just 24 hours ago. And to think that that photo and that person in a Reddit post ultimately brought investigators here to this facility in Salem, New Hampshire, where we've learned that the suspect, Claudio Valente, has died. Now, if I bring you guys back live here again, we're kind of waiting for that tow truck to kind of come back out of the parking lot where we can get a better look at this Nissan, the vehicle that might have been used to transport the suspect through these various places where he enacted terrible, terrible violence. Back to you.
Leanna Falk in Salem, New Hampshire for us tonight. We also learned during one of those press conferences that he began renting that storage unit back in November prior to him coming to Providence. And they also revealed a lot about him covering his tracks in this. One of the things they said was his phone couldn't be tracked, and he also had credit cards that weren't in his name. So this had been planned for quite a while.
Yeah, exactly. And we really can't lose sight of the fact that parents out there are still grieving tonight. 2 students are dead, and we've got a number of students that are still in the hospital, Rhode Island Hospital, suffering from gunshot wounds. And one thing that parents want to know is why. We don't know why. Let's go out now to Dan Janik, who's standing by. Oh, Mark Searles. Mark Searles has a weather alert for us. Mark?
Yeah, guys, I'll go real quick here. Just want to give everybody just a real quick heads up. Weather alert tomorrow. Headlines showing the worst of this is going to be in the mid-morning through mid-afternoon, right? So we're talking like 9, 10 a.m. through about 2 to 3 p.m. That's when some of the strongest wind gusts and some of the heaviest rain will come through. Not a huge impact on our coast if you're concerned about that, but there could be some ferry disruptions. Just keep a close watch on that. Not terribly windy right now. It is in the process of getting warmer. We expected this. We're already up to about 50 degrees at our coastline. Those temperatures will continue to rise. We have a little bit of spotty light rain showers that'll come through here in the overnight, but these are some light to moderate showers. That's the heavy stuff just moving through the Ohio Valley. That's what we're targeting again for the mid-morning, and I'm talking like 8, 9 a.m. through just after 2 p.m. If that's the time you're going to find yourselves on the roads, that's when potentially you could have some of the heaviest rain and some of the strongest wind. It's coming out of the south, averaging 20 to 30 miles an hour. Temperatures well into the 50s, but it's the wind that's going to be, the main issue with this as we go through that time frame. So here you go. Again, morning commute shouldn't have massive issues. Bus stop could be a little wet at times, but you get to that 9, 10 a.m.-ish time frame. That's when some of those steadier bands are wrapping through. We're still mild with a south-southwest wind through 3 p.m. And then once this front clears, the wind shifts into a west direction. Most of the rain's over at that time. We are still very windy tomorrow night, but we're turning cool and drier as we head into Saturday. I'll finish this up with one look at those wind gusts. Again, this is the big concern here. Some of these stronger wind gusts mixing down in that 10 a.m. to about 2 to 3 p.m. time frame. 55 to maybe near 60-mile-an-hour gusts, especially toward the Cape and Islands. The worst of it moves away, but it's still very windy, around 40, maybe 45 miles an hour for us right into Friday night. That eases gradually by around midday or so on Saturday. There shouldn't be much wind at all by Saturday afternoon. So again, travel difficult. That's the weather alert. That wind, that rain combo. Looks dry for the weekend. Dry to start Christmas week. Maybe a few rain and snow showers Tuesday. Jason joins you at 4:30 a.m. at our Sunrise Show with more on the alert. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Mark. Once again, just to recap, a huge development in the Brown University shooting. The suspect taking his own life inside a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. I believe we have a photo of the suspect here.
That's Claudio Manuel Neves Valente. He was 48 years old. Authorities say he's a Portuguese national with a last known address in Miami. They aren't sure where he was living right now. Valente enrolled in Brown in the fall of 2000. He joined the graduate school to earn a Master's of Science and then a PhD program in physics. He took a leave of absence in 2001 and then withdrew in 2003.
And this image that we have of him was actually taken at the rental car facility where he rented that car, that the second person yesterday came forward and had spotted him in and kind of cracked open this case. We have some sound from Chief Perez, who you just heard a short time ago, talking about how they cracked this case open.
The community stepped up. It was all about groundwork, public assistance, interviews of individuals, and good old-fashioned policing. That is the type of police work that every police officer in this nation reminds themselves of, and that many do not understand. And that is critically important and often succeeds where technology alone cannot.
All right, now we want to show you some video that we took earlier tonight, and Leanna Falk is up there actually now in Salem, New Hampshire. A few hours ago, we learned that authorities were investigating this storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire. Now, if you drive up that way, it's right off the interstate, So he apparently had rented a unit in there, and it was in his name. Authorities learned that he was in there. They got some surveillance video. They went inside and eventually found out that he had died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Authorities say there was nothing in the unit, just him and that satchel we'd seen him carrying in a number of the surveillance photos and videos that we've showed you over the last few days. And this is some of the video we have. This is from Salem, New Hampshire. Currently, I believe, are these live images that we're seeing right now from Salem, New Hampshire, or this from?
These are from closed off that road there.
Yeah.
And when we were talking to Leanna, we got a sense earlier. Initially, it was very intense. There was a sense of urgency. And then everybody started to slow down. And when we talked to Leanna Falk, she said, yep, all the stores are still open here and nobody's been evacuated. So that's when we got an indication that he was dead, because they would have evacuated all of those facilities and all of those houses. We want to go to some sound now from Christina Paxson, the Brown University president.
During his time at Brown, Nuevis Valente was enrolled only in physics classes. The majority of physics classes at Brown have always been held within the Barris and Hawley classrooms and labs. Now, detailed records indicating where specific courses were held don't extend back to 2001. But we can say that physics classes typically require access to specialized equipment, including demonstration carts that are a fixed asset in some of Barris and Hawley classrooms. So I think it's safe to assume that this man, when he was a student, spent a great deal of time in that building for classes and other activities.
All right, so before we go, we just want to recap you with where you're at. The suspect, Claudio Neves Valente, a Portuguese national who came to the United States to study in Brown about 25 years ago, killed himself inside a storage unit today. He is the suspect in both the Brown University shooting that killed 2 students and left 9 injured, as well as the suspect in the shooting of an MIT professor in Brookline, Massachusetts on Monday evening. This is another look at the suspect. Right now, officers are working to piece together why he did this. They're going to be combing through the evidence and looking at his connection to both Brown University and the MIT professor who unfortunately lost his life.
And there you see his picture. Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, a former student at Brown University, came to this country on a student visa, eventually became a permanent resident, found dead tonight in a storage unit in Salem, New Hampshire, after authorities traced him there and found a rental car outside. Some very good police work done tonight, and everybody is feeling a sigh of relief tonight, except perhaps for the parents of those 2 students who died in that terrible shooting last Saturday at Brown University. Our hearts and our prayers go out to them.
Our coverage now picks up on turnto10.com, and we will keep you updated, and we will join you for sunrise with an update.
Good night.
This storm will be here through the night, as will I.
The December to Remember sales event.
Get special offers on select Lexus TX models.